I want to talk about the techniques that you guys employed for filming a musical. First of all, have either of you worked on a musical of this scale before? No.
I've never.
Getting no's from
ever.
Mitch. Buzz, have you done any musical work before?
I did. I did a thing called Step Up 3D, which technically was a lot of dancing, and I did some additional photography on In the Heights. And not to go on about this too much, but as a child, I was a dancer, so I kind of understand the whole. This kind of whole thing about dancing. If someone says 5, 6, 7, 8, I'm like, oh, okay, here we go. Pay attention.
Well, did you feel like your experience as a dancer helped you in this role? Like, is there kind of did you feel there was a benefit to having those skills?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Watching them go through a rehearsal, if it was very difficult where the actors are hitting different marks, and you have to kind of be ahead of that with a camera. If you're behind it, you've missed it. You have to be ahead of it to know where eventually they're gonna end up, so that you're there waiting for that moment. So, having that experience certainly was. Yeah, it was. I was very lucky to have that experience. It definitely gave me an advantage. Yeah.
Mitch, how do you treat a film like West Side Story that's a musical? In being your first one, how is it different for you? What were maybe some of the kind of aha moments you had when you got on set and you're like, oh, I guess we're doing things a little differently now?
Well, there really are, I think, like a different set of rules for doing a musical. I mean, one really obvious rule is that, when you're showing dancers dancing, you don't cut off their feet. I mean, that's pretty basic, but it's not something that when you're doing a dramatic narrative scene that you always think about. You try to make frames clean, and, there's certain traditions of where you frame people, but, sometimes you don't, it's something else is more important. You might cut off their feet, but in dancing, that's like the ultimate sin. Sometimes after a take, I would get a note, Mitch, you cut off their feet. And so we'd have to do it again. But the thing that, as Buzz was referring to, everything is so motivated by the music. And normally we're camera operators. We find our motivation visually. We're looking at something, even if it might mean we keep our, left eye open while your right eye's to the eyepiece. But doing dance and a musical, they're so athletic, these dancers, and I would get instructions from Steven, like on that downbeat of the fourth verse or the fifth stanza, Mitch, whip over to this leaping dancer. And first of all, I didn't know what that meant. That's one problem. But when I finally understood what it meant.
Wait, what did you not understand? The term, musical terminology?
Yeah, the musical terminology.
Okay.
Buzz is a musician and a dancer, as he says. But for me, I understand music and beats and everything, but the terminology sometimes would be, like in a recording studio. I didn't really understand it, but that didn't take too long to figure out. But still, my instinct was always, okay, it's the downbeat on the fifth verse, whatever. I'm just going to watch. I'll keep my eye open and watch for that dancer leaping. And whenever I tried to do that, inevitably I was always late because, like I said, these dancers are so athletic. If I jump in the air, I'm going to bend my legs and I'm going to wind up and I'm going to jump. With dancers, you're looking at them, and 1 minute they're standing on the ground, and the next instant they're in the air. They don't do anything; they just fly. So, I needed sometimes to have somebody tap me on the shoulder when that was coming up, or otherwise just understand the music well enough that I knew on this beat I had to get over there to this dancer. But it was different. It was musically motivated, not visually motivated.
Buzz, did you feel like you were able to anticipate those moments maybe better just because you had a sense of movement from these dancers?
Yeah, I mean, that's hard to say. If I had not had that experience, I don't know if I could have or not. I was, because I did have that. I did have that background and that experience. So I would have to say that it did help. It was an advantage to know the beats and the things. And we also had headsets, and sometimes I would ask for click track just to know when I could count the clicks because the dancers are based on whatever those steps are. So the clicks could also motivate to say, okay, and I'm going to pan now. And, so you'd have kind of, you used to have a syllabus, for lack of a better word, to go by for each take,